Hello, welcome back to the channel of Car Nonsense. I'm Tim and today I want to talk quickly about getting old. I'm going to get a bit personal quite quickly. Last Thursday I was eating my dinner, spaghetti bolognese, and I coughed, which put me in hospital. The next day I pulled a muscle in my ribs which left me unable to walk, drive a car, and barely breathe. And I went to the hospital and they said, you've pulled a muscle and you are getting old, which is exactly what's been happening to the beautiful Alfa Romeo Stelvio. It's 7 years old now and it's just had its first facelift. So today I'm going to do a quick video to show you what is new on the 2023 facelift of the Stelvio and whether you should still consider it as your family SUV. And there might be some gunfire in the background because I'm on a military firing range here in the UK. I think there's some Marines teaching Ukrainians how to kill invaders or something. And at the end of this video, if my back hasn't got better, I'm going to ask them to politely come over and put me down. The Stelvio is now a £47,000 car. There are only two versions. They simplified the range for the update. You can get a Sprint or a Veloce, which is the top spec one, and obviously there's the Quadrifoglio. But this is starting from £47,000 now. The Quadrifoglio is £80,000, but we're going to talk about the normal ones today. The engine choice has been slimmed down. There's now only one diesel option with 210 horsepower from a 2.2 diesel, and there's one petrol, which is this, the 2 litre, 280 horsepower petrol, and is really good. They're all four-wheel drive here in the UK, but you can put a mechanical limited slip diff on the back axle as well, which is quite fun. It's a pickup truck going past. At least the gunfire stopped. But anyway, the cosmetic changes are in the headlights. New headlight units, they're slightly slimmer, reshaped, and they've got the new U-shaped daytime running lights from the new Tonale SUV, and they've got matrix LEDs on top spec models so it can block out oncoming cars and do all that jazz. And it's got a redesigned grille here. It still looks like, I think it's beautiful, frankly, especially in this lovely, deeply sexy Mazzano blue. The free colour is Alpha Red. There's some other small changes at the back. I'll show you them now. Because this is a Veloce version, it sits on big 20-inch wheels which do make the ride a bit thumpy around town, but you can get versions of this with adaptive dampers to slightly mitigate that, but they do look blooming fantastic. New tail lights for this facelift. They've got a clear finish, they're slightly sharper, more pointier than before, and I still think genuinely it's just one of the best looking SUVs, and it's pretty practical as well. It's got a 525 litre boot that is one of the slowest opening boots I've ever used, but whatever. The boot space itself is slightly smaller than a Mercedes GLC, but it's still a really, really good size for family duties, and it's got levers to flip the rear seats down, and it's got some hooks on the floor. There's some space under there for storing stuff. I'd absolutely rock one of these as my daily car if I could, because it's just mixed practicality and beauty in a way that few other SUVs can. It's good to drive as well, which we'll come on to very soon, but I've got to show you the interior first. The interior of the Stelvio is a really lovely place to spend your time. It's got a nice, delicate, thin-rimmed steering wheel, and if you get a Veloce version, you get the huge aluminium shift paddles which stay fixed when you turn the wheel. They are beautiful. They're ripped straight out of the top spec Quadrifoglio one. The seats are really nice. You can inflate the bolsters and deflate them. And if you're really skinny, you'll be pleased to know you can inflate them massively so fat men like me can't drive your car, which is really quite cool. There are some cheap plastics here and there, but the stuff you touch is mostly fine. The updated stuff is mostly the digital dashboard, which has been nicked from the Tonale. It's got 3 different layouts that you can choose from, one of which is a cool vintage looking one. It's really quite sweet. The infotainment system, a little bit dated now. They should have put the one from the Tonale in this, but they haven't for whatever Italian reason. But yeah, it's a little bit laggy. It's a little bit slow to use. You have to plug in for CarPlay. The one from the Tonale is leagues ahead of this in sharpness, in responsiveness, in wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. So it's a bit of a miss on that front, but otherwise, can't fault it really. It's not quite up there with Mercedes and BMW in terms of quality throughout and consistency of feel, but the stuff you touch is largely good. I haven't forgotten to film backseat space. Look, I'm doing it right now. I'm definitely in the same place as a minute ago, but yeah, I've actually got plenty of room back here. That goes forward when you turn the ignition on, so I'm gonna have knee room to spare, frankly. I'm 6'3". I've got space under the seat for my feet. I've got loads of headroom, and yeah, that's about it really. It's a bit lacking in the connections department. I've got a USB down there, but that's about your lot. I've got some small door bins, and it doesn't feel too claustrophobic when you shut the back doors. So yeah, pretty decent family SUV, and the seat backs aren't too upright either. Right, we are going for a drive in the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, whether you like it or not, frankly. And the first thing you really notice when you get in this car is that it feels quite a bit sportier than other SUVs. And part of that is because the suspension is quite firm, and around town it gets a little bit thuddy. but most of it is because it's actually quite a light car for an SUV. Alfa Romeo is focused on making it lightweight from the get-go with light engines, carbon fibre bits that you can't see underneath, and it does feel sporty. It's got quick steering as well, and the steering wheel is nice and delicate, and those shift paddles really do just feel rather lovely. And perhaps the biggest surprise for me is that 2-litre petrol engine feels pretty good. It's got 280 horsepower, it's responsive, it's gutsy, it accelerates fast enough, but also the 4-wheel drive system on this car is, as far as these things go, reasonably interesting. It can send all the power to the back wheels and only sends 50% to the front if it really needs to. So most of the time this is a rear-wheel drive car, so you feel yourself being pushed out corners under power, and that again makes it feel the S word, sporty. It makes it feel different, it makes it feel much more engaging compared to its German competitors. If I put the driving mode in D for dynamic, it sharpens up the throttle and everything else, but also when you go for some upshifts using the delicious large gear shift paddles, it actually thumps them into your back, and it feels very Italian, frankly. It feels a little bit Ferrari in some ways, which is nuts for a 47 grand SUV with a 4-cylinder engine. Would I have this over a Porsche Macan in the driving department? Do you know what? I think I would. The Macan feels quite heavy, quite serious, and although it's good to drive for an SUV, something about it that just feels a little bit too tied down and a little bit too, my job is to make driving fun, whereas this just feels more natural because it's Italian. But yeah, other things that I like about it. The amount of equipment that you get on these Veloci trims is really good. You've got radar cruise control, you've got heated seats, heated steering wheel, same as on the updated Alfa Giulia as well. And these cars are basically the same, except one's an SUV and one is a saloon. So yeah, I really like it to drive, with the caveat that it's a bit lumpy in town. On a motorway, it's a really quiet cruiser, so you can absolutely rock this as your family SUV and look like the most stylish person in the National Trust car park. I like it a lot. Ironically, for me, I'm being held up by a motorcyclist on a really good road. Normally, I'm the motorcyclist wobbling around corners holding everyone else up, but hey, how are the turntables? But let's get back to me for a conclusion. Right, I'm back at my house now with the Alfa Stelvio to sum up, and it's still a really impressive SUV. It's certainly up there with the German rivals in terms of how it drives. I would say it's actually better than most of them. It's just a really nice feeling car. Now, there are some downsides. The infotainment system is it's not great, to be honest. It's livable, but it's not the best, and it's nowhere near the likes of BMW and Mercedes offerings. But just look at it. Imagine having this on your driveway. That 2-litre petrol engine with 280 horsepower feels really well suited to it. It's a little bit thirsty. You get about 30 mpg, a bit less when you're really hammering it. But it's got all the tech you could want, and if you can forgive a few little Alfa foibles and a few cheap bits of plastic, it's a stunning SUV to drive. It can do the family thing, it's practical. You won't necessarily be left wanting the quadrifolio version, and certainly that is really, really expensive now at £80,000. But yeah, I find myself falling for the Stelvio's charm. Other downside I did mention earlier on is a bit lumpy around town suspension wise, but on an open flowing road, there's not much in SUV land that can touch it. Anyway, hopefully you found this useful. If you have, please hit like, please subscribe to the channel. So I've got plenty more car reviews coming up soon. And I didn't get shot, although my back is now hurting so much from driving this on a country road, because my back is buggered, not because that is bad, that I do just want to go and lie down forever. I'll see you next time, maybe.